All right, and we're live.
Happy days.
Yeah.
I was just watching your funky video on my Twitter stream. On my Twitter.
Oh, really? Awesome.
I just thought I wanted to check it out to see if that video worked.
Yeah, so it's a bit experimental at the moment, and let's see. That was V1. Hopefully, we'll have another V2 by next week.
Yeah, happy days.
Welcome that are joining us in the midweek. For those who are joining us usually in the weekends, as you know, Luke and I do crypto updates from the week and share stories from Asia. And today we're actually discussing one of those really hot topics from last week, about DeFi teams hoarding governance tokens and getting accused basically of having too much voting power. So it's like, is that something you've been hearing a lot about, Luke?
Well, I've actually been doing a lot of work over the past little while for looking at a lot of these governance tokens and how they're working. So it's quite an interesting one. And the only thing I'd like to add to what you just said, Peter, is that what we're trying for the next couple of weeks is looking at doing something like this every Wednesday, Thursday, in order to sort of just do a quick 15, 20 minute review of either one topic or a couple, and just see what happens. So that's what we're doing now. We'll just see what happens. But it's but I think that the government governance token space is actually going to get fairly interesting as the methods in which these things are earned gets incredibly more complex. And it's either going to be one of those things that the super bleeding edge are going to benefit from, or and then maybe the rest of us that are not 10,000 level IQ miss out on, or it's going to be another one of those experiments gone bad. But in all honesty, I'm hoping that we reach somewhere in between where governance tokens become part of our daily lives in the next 5 years, as far as from an investing standpoint. And but I think that I'm hopefully, in order for that to happen, the way in which they're sort of minted and the way in which they're earned gets significantly simpler.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree there. So because we're keeping it short today, I'm going to try and stick to that 15-minute window. I'm going to bring up the article that we're going to run through. And by the way, so for those that are tuned in, we welcome any viewer participation. So drop us a line, drop us a comment, let us know you're there, and get involved in the conversation. But yeah, so today we're looking at that header, DeFi teams accused of hoarding tokens and voting power. And this basically focuses around kind of like three companies actually, or three DeFi protocols that are running right now. So the first being Curve, which is one of those decentralized pools. And then we're looking at Yearn Finance and 1inch, which is a decentralized exchange. So just to give you a quick background on basically what this article talks about, and for those that are not up to date with what's happening in this governance space in the decentralized finance world. So there was a bit of a drama that kind of unraveled in like the past week, which kind of all started with Curve's announcement, which was that on August 28th, they were actually going to multiply their rewards for CRV holders by up to 2.5x. So basically what this encouraged people to do is basically to lock up more CRV tokens into their pool, just so that they could take advantage of basically getting more rewards. And what this triggered is one of the biggest participants is Yearn Finance. They basically locked up $2.5 million worth of their CRV tokens into this liquidity provider rewards pool. By locking that up, actually, that means that they locked it up for 4 years, right? So the controversy that kind of unraveled after this is basically the founder of Curve, when they saw that Yearn locked up so many tokens, they kind of got very defensive, and the founder of Curve actually locked up. I think was it the whole team's governance tokens.
I think it was the entire team. But to be honest with you, I mean, it should also be noted that, I mean, based on the numbers we see here, I mean, the team probably owns less than 5% of total supply. So it's not like that they own 75% of supply and they just said, you know, let's just go ham. It's a case of the team locked up their supply, which was 5%, but because most people aren't locking up in order to vote, the total, they actually ended up, making up most of the pool. Now, they could have also, I honestly think it wasn't necessarily a finger slip or an overreaction. I think that they were just locking up all their tokens, not out of anything malicious, but I think it would have been the kind of thing where they looked at, oh, well, people are starting to lock up their tokens for the voting. Let's get ours in. And then after they did it, everybody stopped. So I think it's a case of, they basically they thought they were at the beginning of the wave, but they were really at the end. And once they're in, it's a bit too late, because once you're locked for 4 years, you're locked for 4 years. So I think it's more a case of that, in all honesty, because of the nature of a lot of these decentralized projects favoring decentralization. It sort of goes against the grain. It goes against the grain of what they're striving for to sort of build.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so what happened actually is, like Luke said, so the number of tokens that basically the Curve founder actually locked up actually represented in the end 71% of governance power, right? So they actually they basically had the majority stake of actually being able to vote on the protocol's direction. So the quorum for actually being able to vote is actually 30%. So there was no way that anyone else basically could achieve this if they continued to have 71%. And so what you saw like kind of unfolding afterwards is basically Curve kind of like reacting, saying, hey, we may have overreacted a little bit. We kind of like locked up too many of our tokens all at once. We realized that you guys, we have the majority vote. Now you guys need to actually do your part and actually lock up some of our tokens so that you guys have more of the voting power as well.
Mm. Yeah, but I mean, I think that the drama is more of I think that probably there was a bit of a overreaction on behalf of some of those that are a bit critical. I just think they assumed that more people would stake tokens than what actually did. And also, I mean, like it's not uncommon for the founding team to want to have at least some control over the protocol for a period of time. Like Compound, for example, it's going to take a couple of years before there is enough like supply available to the non-VCs and the non-founders before they make even a dent on being able to vote on things. So this Curve stuff is not really a big deal. And at the end of the day, in the nascent, in the fact that a lot of these projects are in their infancy, and they're not really making. I mean, they're making waves in DeFi, but as far as global finance, they're not really making much of a big deal. How much of a big deal is it for the founding team to have the majority of the votes at the start? Like, personally speaking, it's probably a storm in a teacup as far as how these guys are reacting.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. And I mean, like, yeah, literally, who would you want to have, kind of to have control and kind of stake at the beginning of, the early stages of a project as well, right? So yeah, I absolutely agree, man. So like, there was basically this. It was basically the way that it unraveled actions that you saw it, like you see like people calling it a fat finger mistake, and like the headlines like to make big news out of the way that kind of like these things unraveled. But like, yeah, potentially it's not such a huge deal. I mean, as long as basically more CRV holders actually do lock up their tokens to be able to vote as well. But I think the big ask, right, was that, when you do lock them up, you're literally committing yourself to that project for 4 years. And do you believe, those tokens are really going to be worth something after that 4-year period? What do you reckon on that?
I think so. I mean, you're basically staking, as far as the team's concerned, and obviously Yearn are concerned. I mean, Yearn's main business model is very much dependent on Curve, so they've got a belief that Curve will succeed, and they've put a certain percentage of their treasury behind it. Obviously, the Curve team are hoping that Curve still works in 4 years' time. So, I think that's sort of pretty promising that two of the major players hope that it succeeds. However, probably at this stage, the low turnout shows you how most farmers feel about the Curve token, in that there's not many people who are out there wanting to put a significant amount of money behind. They're not going to want to be staking for voting, or they don't see value in it because there's such a low number. In that, if 5% if the amount of tokens that the development team have is like, so let's call it 5%, and then they somehow control the majority of the voting power, it sort of shows what the rest of the community thinks of the voting. And that's yet again one of those interesting things about these governance tokens, is that number one, it's a really interesting way to run a project, is in getting community involvement. But then the one big question is how much does the community really care? Like, how much do people really give a shit whether they can vote on the future protocols and things like that? And I would argue for a lot of these really complex protocols, like, Wi-Fi, the process of earning Wi-Fi is not exactly straightforward or easy. So, I mean, it's not just as simple as just, going and depositing some stuff or buying some tokens or something. The process of earning it is, for the average crypto user or even a retail investor is complex. So, so if most of the people that are investing in this thing, and I'd probably say most of the public that would be investing in it would be getting stuck in on the FOMO, I mean, how much of a buy-in are these people going to have about the future direction of such a protocol? I mean, most people would have just been sitting back and saying, wow, that Andre guy is a genius. I want to leave all the decision making up to him, because most people that would be voting or hypothetically voting would not have the degree of vision or the degree of passion about the project as he does. So I think that's the counterbalance to a lot of these governance projects, is that I'd probably say the vast majority of token holders would have nothing but apathy for voting. Yeah,
definitely. So then what happened actually afterwards, and something like a continuation of this governance controversy, is that basically 1inch also declared that they're going to be launching their governance token soon. And they actually announced the future split of how tokens will be allocated. And the way that they basically distributed it got a bit of backlash from the community. And I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but just to give you some background, right? So for 1inch, they actually allocated 2% of tokens to early liquidity providers of their exchange, Uniswap, and then 21% to ecosystem growth, so totaling at 23% to the community. But then there was controversy that basically this is only 0.5% more than what the core team own and can potentially vote, which is 22.5%. And then investors actually hold 19.5% of votes. So then there's basically, there is this question about like how many percent should really all these groups like within the protocols actually own for it to be actually meaningful kind of like number of tokens.
I think there's no. I mean, I'm going to take the easy road out and say we don't know yet. We really don't know. So far, you've seen projects where the founders take no tokens, or they have no voting power. Like Wi-Fi is an example of where the founders said we're too lazy and we don't care enough to be involved in the voting process. And so the founding team have just said we're not interested. Fair enough. Then you've got something like Compound, where for the next couple of years, the founding team and initial investors have the majority. You will be unable to even remotely vote against the founding team and the initial investors. So it then goes to, we then go and say, well, what is the better model? Like, do you want vision for the next, do you want like some kind of, singular vision that's going to drive this business forward for the next few years? Or do you want everybody having their opinion heard, from day dot? And I'd probably say yet again, as I said before, in the nascent way that this industry is at the moment, I don't think it's time. I mean, the time is appropriate to let the masses have their absolute say over the way a protocol should work, because we still don't know what the successful protocol looks like, what the successful business model looks like, we don't know what success looks like yet. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there was no such thing as yield farming before Compound. And I can say now that when I started my YouTube channel was around, that's when Compound came out. So it's like it's only been a couple of months. So you can't really start putting guidelines on what's right and what's wrong. In regards to what 1inch are doing, I have no problems with the core team having a big chunk. I have absolutely no problem. At the end of the day, the core team are the guys who came up with the idea, came up with the vision, built it, and then got it to where it is now. So they're obviously doing something right. You know what I mean? Like, whereas the people in the public, I mean, I'd probably say that 90% of the people that would own the tokens in the next 6 months will be people who are punting on it, hoping that it goes up, like, and don't have a vested interest in where the business goes, or have any expertise to guide the business either.
Exactly. Well, that's an awesome place actually to stop this, and actually to get the comments and the opinions of our viewers actually. So
what's going to be embarrassing if no one says anything?
Yeah, well, we've done our 15 minutes. We'd love to get the feedback.
But I know Ian always has something he likes to say.
Ian, you want to chime in there?
Oh, Dane's here. Hey, Dane.
Awesome. Well, Luke, let's wrap it up. I mean, I'd love to get the comments from all the viewers. Okay.
No, the last thing I want to say is that anyone who's watching this, I mean, I'm not worried about live, but if anyone's watching this, I'm going to do an update on Ampleforth. I'm going to record that tonight. Actually, I'm going to record that right now, and then that's going to update on all the exciting stuff that's happened with that project, and why my opinion hasn't changed in the past 2 weeks, because I think it's been hemorrhaging supply for the last 2 weeks. It's been amazing. So that's all I have to say about that. But yeah, all good. Shameless plug.
Okay, tune into Blocksiders. Get yourself
and otherwise, we'll chat again on Saturday for a much longer, much more in-depth update about what's happening in crypto.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. All right. See you guys on Saturday.
See you guys.